Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 14.3. Bit of a weird patch, I must say. Steet Demon I think is the best comp by far, and then Vex is closely behind. Vex overall is just very solid and is something you can kind of go into in a lot of different games. Of course, Cypher is still good if you get a good cash out. Twisted Fate reroll, there's a new twist on that, so definitely wait for the comp explanation section to find out more details on that. But essentially you're trying to do Draven with the Twisted Fate, and of course after we go over the summary we'll cover how to play each and every one of these comps. Strategist Flex, good option again now. Marksman, Vanguard, very good forecast comp if you have like a ton of money because you need a lot of forecasts. And then Bruiser Fiddlesticks got a huge bump up. Pretty much every bruiser got buffed, so yeah, Bruiser Fiddlesticks and all the other bruiser comps are going to be a lot better, easier to get into, and also the final stage is also going to be a bit better. Boombots are making an appearance right now. With the emblem they're really good, without it it's complete garbage. Executioner reroll, that's with Rengar, it's really good in Steet Demon. Shaco Reroll still viable if you get it, and then Veigar also going to be viable if you get it as well. In the B tier we have Golden Ox. The thing about Golden Ox is that if you get an amazing start, I'm talking having like a ton of money in order to get Golden Ox units to farm stuff. I'm talking about a ton of money, Golden Ox upgrades so that you farm gold early on in the game, and then you're able to snowball that into like a huge gold lead, then yeah, they're going to be really, really good. But unless you get that, they're pretty mediocre. Anima squad, nothing to see there. Like they're just not that great compared to all the other vertical comps like Steet Demon and things like that. Exotech, very mediocre after the nerfs. Zeri just isn't hitting as hard right now. Vayne Reroll, nerfed as well. I thought they'd be more playable, but Vayne definitely not so much in the dumpster, but definitely not something that you kind of force every single game. Only in like super specific spots. And then like everything else pretty much like they're all playable. They all have their certain situations where you would want to go for them, but it's going to be really rare. That's why they're all in the B tier. I just figured I'd explain more about the top ones just a little bit. But pretty much everything A and S tier, that's what you're going to be going for in most games. Let's get into how to play each and every one of these comps, starting with Steet Demon. So Steet Demon, they're going to be the Steet Demon plus Strategist version. That's going to be the most powerful one. On brand, you want a mana item, either Spear Shojin or Adaptive Helm. I personally have not found a difference between the two. Most people build Shojin, but do not be afraid of building the Adaptive Helm early if you have those components, because it's easier to get a cloak than it is to get a sword. Jeweled Gauntlet and Guardbreaker are going to be the next two items on brand. Since he's like an AoE unit and you want him to crit because he gets a lot of ability power from Steet Demon, you definitely want the crit chance from the Jeweled Gauntlet, and then he's pretty much always going to hit someone with a shield because he's AoE, so that's why you want the Guardbreaker on him. Samira, if you get to the late game, you want to itemize her. If not, focus more on utility items on Ziggs. Static Shiv and Morellonomicon going to be the name of the game there. Nico, whatever tank items you can build on her, it doesn't really matter which. We could go over some of them right now though. If we have 7 Steet Demon in our filter, I'm an Emerald Plus right now, but you could do whichever rating you want. You could make it Diamond, you can make it Masters, you can make it like only Platinum, whatever you want. And then we can see either all the items or specifically champions that we have selected. So Nico, as you can see, for all the tank items, they're pretty much the same average placement. It doesn't really matter what you build, you just need 3 items on her. Obviously, if you have Static Shiv, you do not need the Ionic Spark. If you have Morellonomicon or Red Buff on your Ziggs, you do not need the Sunfire Cape. But for full item guides, you could check out the website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. I pretty much update this whenever I can. One special note for Nico, I do like prioritizing the Warmogs on her. The reason why is because Steet Demons get a lot of bonus health percentage-wise, so having a Warmogs on there kind of accentuates that a little bit. Like, it's reflected a little bit in the stats. It's like, out of all the highly built items, it's one of the best ones. But it's not like the end of the world if you don't get it. Also, strategists give damage reduction, so that's another reason why health is pretty good on her. For augments, like obviously you want the Steet Demon emblem, it's going to be pretty good. You could also go for like 10 Steet Demon if you get enough of them. But the other Steet Demon augments, I think it's called like freestyling, I forget what the other one's called, paint the town or something like that. Both of those are going to make this comp a lot better. Go for those. And if you do get the emblem, you could put it on Viego, you could put it on Kabuko. Any legendary unit can use it pretty well. You could even put it on Ziggs if you have Ziggs as like your item holder. It doesn't really matter. It's just going to be much easier to hit all the different breakpoints for Steet Demon. It allows you to drop certain units. Most people drop Jinx and then Rengar. That way you have a bit more of a front line because you have a lot of damage units whenever you play this comp. But let's move on into the next comp, which is going to be Exotech Vex. This one is a Vex Varus build. Varus is going to be the utility item holder, Static Shiv plus Red Buff, and then on him, Hollow Bow is pretty good. But you could also use Hyperfang. Hyperfang is really nice. Let's type in Varus over here. Let's do Let's do Emerald Plus. No, let's do Diamond Plus for this one. Why not? What I like to do is just make sure that you have like a okay sample size. Like anything above like 250k, depending on what comp you're playing, is gonna be fine. Like it's more so getting like a lot of games in here. As long as it's not like in the hundreds or like low thousands, you're gonna be fine. But as we can see on Varus, we could filter by Exotech items, and Hyperfangs is going to be the most popular one. Hollowbow also good. It doesn't really matter which one you use. Like whatever items you get from the Exotech, like you pretty much have to use them, right? You don't really have a choice. If you get a tank Exotech item, you want to drop it on Sejuani or Mordekaiser, depending on who you get. Some people 3-star Mordekaiser as well. It depends if you're going for 3-star Varus. You don't have to do him 3-star, but if you do, you could go for Mordekaiser as well. And then in the super late game, if your 5th Exotech item sucks, or if you have a lot of gold and are able to get legendaries 2-star, check out the 3 Exotech version. That's going to be with like Viego, Renekton, Aurora. You could add in a lot of other ones too. You could put in like Kabuko, whoever you really want. Like you could check out all the champions here, type in 5, and all of these can fit. Like Urgot also fits, I forgot about him. Zac and Garen are generics in any comp. And 2-star legendaries are going to be better than just playing a Jax or like a Jhin, you know? The only weird unit you want to keep in is Morgana. She gives ability power, so you want her to keep the Divinicorp buff. Speaking of Divinicorp, Board of Directors, extremely good. If you have 3 or less Divinicors, you get like extra bonuses with that, so that's really nice because that's exactly what this comp does. Blue Battery, really good. Nothing too crazy going on here. Like for augments, like getting a trait augment for the Divinicors is obviously pretty nice, but apart from that, just getting to level 8, guaranteeing hitting Sedge 2, Vex 2 is going to be the main priority there, plus like a blue buff. Next build up we have is Cypher, so if you get a cash out, use it, great. You don't have to play Cyphers. If you do, go for like a Draven 3 with a Zed. That's going to be fine, but you could also play any late game comp. So what do I mean by a late game comp? If we go to the summary, late game comps are going to be stuff like Steet Demon. It's going to be stuff like Strategist Flex, maybe Vanguard, Marksman, Aphelios, anything that uses or has the ability to use a bunch of different legendary units, like Vex is another example. That's going to be what you're going to want to go for when you have a Cypher cash out, because you have extra resources, you have more units to itemize, you have more gold to play around with, but you could also just play Vayne Reroll if you want to keep the Cypher units in your board. It really just depends on what items you're getting that game, what augments you're getting that game, and what units you're hitting. So it is a little tricky to play around with a Cypher cash out, but if you do get it, I do recommend playing it. I'd say if you have a Cypher start around like stage 2-3 or earlier, I would do it. Anything later than that, it's still playable, but I like to maybe just pivot into something else, because obviously you want to start stacking as early as possible. Next build up we have is going to be Syndicate Reroll with Twisted Fate. The only change from before, like this is the old version, it uses the same units, but you want to itemize your Draven and also go for Draven and Braum 3. If your Darius is 3-star, itemize him. If your Braum is 3-star, itemize Braum. Braum is a better tank, but he is more difficult to get because getting all of these 4 units 3-star is super expensive. What you want to do is also change up how you play a little bit, because they change how Twisted Fate works a little bit, because since you want the Draven 3, you want to roll on level 7, not level 6, in like maybe in like 70% of cases. And the reason why is because you're looking for 3-cost and 2-cost units, and level 7 is a bit better for those types of odds. The only time I'd roll on level 6 is if you have a lot of Twisted Fates and a lot of Dariuses, where rolling on 6 doesn't hurt you that much because you're not going to be there for that long. You just roll, find them, and then go to level 7, find Braum and Draven. Another thing that's changed is Twisted Fate's build. They made it so that his stacking is a bit worse, so he doesn't get as much ability power from auto attacking. I think he used to gain 2, now he gains like 1.5 or something like that. Don't quote me on those numbers. I went over it in the patch rundown in case you missed that. Apparently I missed it too because I don't remember the exact numbers, but all I know is that you only need 1 Rage Blade on him. The second one is still going to be fine. You're not going to lose the game if you have 2 Rage Blades on him, but people are liking the Archangels a bit more. We could check the data on this a little bit in the Explorer tool. Go to items, let's add in a Rage Blade. It's for sure going to be Hextech Gunblade as the next item. And then lastly, you'll see that the second Rage Blade, not doing as well. The Archangel is going to be a bit better. And then even stuff like a Giant Slayer or a Jeweled Gauntlet going to be fine too. So that's the one little change there. Don't do the double Rage Blade. It's not bad, it's just not the best. So keep that in mind as you're playing this game. Draven is going to want Red Buff, Shojin, and IE. I think that's the best build on him. The reason why is because I really like Red Buff because he applies it so well. He just throws his axes across the board. They hit pretty much everyone you need to hit. And then when TF throws like an area of effect card, they won't be able to heal back up as quickly. So that's why I really like the red buff on him. Spear Shojin is to get him to cast faster, and then IE, he is a spellcaster, so IE, you want his ability to critically strike. So that's why we build him this way. Darius up in the front, or Braum, they're just going to use any generic tank items you can get, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The only mistake that I see a lot of people make with this comp is focusing on Misfortune. She's okay, like she's not bad. If you itemize like 2 of your tanks and 2 of your DPS, and you have even more items, I don't know what game you would have where you have so many resources. Yeah, sure, itemizing Misfortune could be okay, but I'd focus on Draven first before the Misfortune whenever playing this. Like sometimes I see people itemize their Darius, their TF, and then their MF, and I think that's a bit of a waste because you can't give your Syndicate hats to like 3 different units. You can only give them to 2, so that's why itemizing someone like Draven is going to be fine. And the great news about Draven is that he doesn't require many traits to get activated, because one of them is Cypher, so you don't need to actually build around him that much. Next build up we have is Strategist Flex. Not too much has changed about this comp other than they just got buffed. I wouldn't say this is some sort of insane comp you could go every single game similar to the Vex build, but if you built a blue buff early game and you're not seeing many Vexes, what you can do is try to go for the Strategist Flex build. So that's going to be itemizing Annie with the blue buff, putting like a Nashor's Tooth and Spear Shojin on her so she casts really often, and then playing as many AMPs and Strategists as you can. There are a bunch of different builds you could kind of check out. Sometimes you use Ziggs as your carry, and this build pretty much flexes with like the Strategist frontline and then filling in whatever traits you can. You can take out some of the AMPs for legendary units if you want, and overall, it's just something nice to kind of pivot into. You could always use the generic like Garen plus Zac frontline, just in case you found Annie and then maybe you don't have Nefiri and Nidalee in the later parts of the game. Because I know sometimes it's hard to pivot into comps because you're missing like the low cost units, but you don't need them in this build. You just need to play around your 4 costs and then either have legendaries or more traits to kind of fill it out. But overall, pretty straightforward comp to play. You just want to have a huge econ to make it to level 8, roll down, hit your 4 costs, maybe hit a 1-star 5 cost to play around a little bit, get some direction on where you want to go there. And if you built a blue buff early and did not get Vex, or maybe your Exotech items are like really horrible, what are like the worst Exotech items? If we unfilter this, we can look at what it's worse for. So we're going to see like Flux Capacitor. Yeah, you don't have a user for it. Pulse Stabilizer, I would say you don't really have that great of a user either. It's more for like Jhin and stuff like that, Jhin and Zeri. Cyber Coil, not the best, 4.41. So yeah, if you have one of those in your 3 or 5 slot, like maybe you could skip Exotech and go for Strategist instead. Next build up we have is going to be the Aphelios Vanguard Marksman. So this comp has not been played in a while. I don't think it's been played since like the first week of the set. And the reason why is because it got nerfed and then now it's a bit better. I wouldn't say it's OP, but it's definitely in the A tier. It's definitely playable, definitely something you want to look for. We went over a lot of ability power comps so far. Like we have Steet Demon, which is AP. We have Vex, which is AP. Twisted Fate, which is AP. Strategist, which is AP. So this is going to be the first attack damage build that we're going to look at. So if you built Rageblade, you could go for this because Aphelios wants it. And then if you have a lot of attack damage items, this is another build that can use it too. So the base of it is just 4 Marksman, 4 Vanguard. Nothing too complicated there. You just have the 4 in the back, 4 in the front. Itemize all the 4 cost units, and that's pretty much going to be it. The tricky part about this game is going to be the early game. So the reason why is because it's hard to manage the item holders, I find at least. So what I like to do is play like a Kindred. She is both a Marksman and a Rapid Fire. So then you could use either the Rapid Fire units, such as Kog'Maw, Twisted Fate, and Draven to hold items, or you can use the Marksman unit, which are Jhin and Jinx, to hold all your items. So obviously, if you have Rageblade, put it on like Twisted Fate. If you have IE, put it on like Jhin. Jinx can kind of use a bunch of different ones, so she can kind of use anything, but that's one way to kind of build this comp into the late game. Use Kindred as like a trait bot, and then itemize whichever units you find. If it's Rapid Fires, use Rapid Fires. If it's Marksman, use Marksman. And then when you do your roll down, get Xayah and Aphelios, and then transfer the items off onto them. So that's one little easy way to kind of play this. After that, for itemization, let's start with Aphelios. If you have the Rageblade, you want something like a Hextech Gunblade. The reason why is because if you have a lot of scaling on him throughout the fight, such as the Rageblade, you want to get the healing effect on him, and that way once he gets a lot of Rageblade stacks, he can kind of like infinite heal everyone. So that's why you do it in that way. For the third item, it could be just any generic damage item. Some people put the second Rageblade on him. Some people put the second Rageblade on him. If we just filter by only Aphelios items, I think IE is bait. A lot of people build Infinity Edge on Aphelios, and I think it's not that great. But like a Giant Slayer does just well, Runon's, if you have Runon's Hurricane Augment, it's called Category 5. It's pretty decent. And then like Deathblade could be another option there too. For Xayah, you want Infinity Edge on her, and then you do not want to build a Spear Shojin. Like, I think Spear Shojin is another one of those items that isn't really necessary on her. You could build it, it's not going to hurt you or anything like that, but I think you just rather have a Guard Breaker as your second damage item, and then for third item on Xayah, you just want her to get the armor penetration, and you could either do that through Even Shroud on Leona or Last Whisper. I find it better to just do the Last Whisper on the Xayah, and the reason why is because if we look at the comp here, we have 2 damage dealers, right, that we're itemizing, and then 1 tank. So we have 6 damage items and 3 tank items. What that means is if I have an Even Shroud on Leona, she's not going to be that tanky compared to if she had like a Warmogs, right? And one thing I always teach is balance your tank and damage items as much as you can. So it's going to be easier if you put some of the utility items onto Xayah, such as Last Whisper, and then put pure tank items onto your Leona. That way she's a bit more resilient. I know we have the Sunfire Cape on her, but the reason why is because Red Buff, while it is playable on both Xayah and Aphelios, it's not one of their like best items, you know? So because we're so limited on tank items, we only have like 2 true pure tank items. I want them to be like super tank items. I don't want like an Even Shroud and then she dies out before my Xayah and Aphelios can clean everyone up. So that's why I like having the Last Whisper on Xayah over the Spear Shojin. It's mainly just to make Leona more resilient for the team because she's like the main tank that we're going to be itemizing, and we don't really have too much after that. At level 9 though, you could add in Aurora, put the Morello on her, and then you could reforge your Sunfire Cape, or maybe you didn't have a Sunfire Cape yet, just put 3 pure tank items on her. If you built a Shojin early on for Xayah, because it is still okay on her, it's just I don't think it's the best, you could move it onto your Aurora later on, because she fits in this team because she's just a generic good late game unit, and she also is a Dynamo for your Jhin, and then you could pull in another tank if you want, such as like Zac, Sejuani, whoever you want. But that's pretty much the basics for this build. If you have an AD start, big econ for 4 costs, the ability to get to level 8, that's going to be when you want to go for this. So you want like an econ augment for sure, and then like some of the trait ones are good. They're not really that great. You don't need like emblems or anything like that, but it is useful if you get like some of the Vanguard augments. Like I forget what they're called, but one of them's not bad. And then after that, items are useful, and then combat augments after that. Item augments are useful because you typically don't get enough items to fill out both Leona, Xayah, and Aphelios, so it speeds that process up a little more, so it changes when you power spike. If you're able to make it into the super late game every time, then you don't need an item augment, but if you're not able to make it there, then you need the item augment to kind of fill everyone out a little bit. Next build up we have is Bruiser Fiddlesticks. Only play this if you have Bruiser emblem on Fiddlesticks, or if you get an insane artifact item. What is an insane artifact item, you may ask? It's going to be Sniper's Focus or Blighting Jewel. These are by far the 2 best items on her. And if you want to check the stats, just put in Fiddlesticks, go to items, go to artifact items, and you'll just see how crazy these 2 items are on him. Like 3.28, 3.47, that's absolutely crazy. Do you even need 3-star Fiddle if you have that? Yeah, you still do. Unfortunate. So yeah, you still need 3-star Fiddle, but if you do get it, like it's gonna be absolutely insane average placements on him. And compared to everything else, it's just like so much higher. So you definitely do want to try that out. After that, you fill out your 6 bruisers. Cho'Gath can be the main tank. Sometimes you go for Mordekaiser's 3-star. You mainly just care about Fiddlesticks, but if you get Mordekaiser along the way, it's fine. Gragas, I think, is a bit bait. Like, getting him to 3-star, I don't think he does that much. I mean, if you have infinite econ, like, go for it. But if you don't, then, like, I think it's a waste of gold. And then you could itemize either Cho'Gath or Mordekaiser. By the way, another good artifact item in this comp is Talisman of Ascension Cho'Gath. It's a really funny one to kind of try out if you have not already. Like, you see it here, like 3.36 over there. They essentially just put it on Cho'Gath and he goes absolutely bonkers with it too. But yeah, essentially artifact item, really good in bruisers, and then you want to fill it out with like 4 Boombot later on to buff up your Fiddlesticks as much as you can. This is going to be like a sample level 8 board. You could combine this with the Boombot comp, so you could go like 6 Boombot, 6 bruisers if you get high enough level. And if you have the Boombot emblem, that's going to be even more bonkers. But yeah, you need a lot of emblems for that, and especially specific ones too. But just go for a 3-cost reroll. You could stabilize at level 6 if you want on 3-2. If you have a lot of health, you could skip that and just go level 7. And yeah, hit 3-star Fiddle. Everyone else optional. Get 2 Archangels on him. Maybe you have Bruiser emblem. Maybe you have one of the artifact items. Whichever it is, he's going to be going ham. And yeah, that's all you need to know. Next one up we have is Boombots. I didn't know I put these two comps back to back, but the Boombot comp is going to be pretty good, but it only works with the emblem because there are only 5 Boombot characters, and there are a couple ways to play this. Like, if you get something really good for Fiddlesticks, like we talked about before, you could play around him. If not, most people are playing around Urgot. Just put generic attack damage items on him, focus on critical strikes, so Guardbreaker and Last Whisper are going to be good. You do not need Infinity Edge, but you could build it if you want. The reason why you don't need it is because Executioners make their abilities critically strike anyways. And then you play Vex to add that effect in. Put the Boombot on Vex. You could blue buff her as well. There are also builds such as Boombot Twisted Fate. There's a version of Twisted Fate out there where instead of playing Draven and Rhaast, you play Skarner and Kog'Maw. And then if you get Boombot emblem, you could drop it under Twisted Fate and then just add in more Boombot units, and he goes absolutely crazy. That's a fun build to try out. It's actually pretty good too. It's not like a meme build or anything. It's actually a legitimate build. So definitely play that if you have not tried it yet, if you get that specific setup. There's a lot that needs to go for it though. You need Twisted Fate 3-star and you need Boombot emblem, but it ends up doing a ton and a ton of damage. But for this comp, fill it out with more bruisers after you have the 6 Boombots in, just to make your frontline guys a little more beefy. That way your backline has more time to kind of damage everything. And of course, you want to buff Cho'Gath a lot. He's going to be like one of your main guys. And he lives really, really long. All those like scaling tank items are really good on him, such as like Warmogs, it's like % health base. Redemption, it's % missing health healing, I think. And then Sunfire Cape, that's going to also have a % health effect. A lot of people don't know that. If you look at Sunfire Cape, gain 8% max health, that's what it does. But of course, you also want the burn effect because your frontline lives so long. So that's kind of why you build Cho'Gath in this way. Other items do work on him, but obviously this is going to be a little bit better. Next build up we have is going to be Executioner Reroll. This is going to be with Rengar. You want to focus on the 7 Street Demon build that we have here, and obviously the positioning is going to change a bit because your Street Demon setup, the hexes they paint are going to be different every single game, but typically there's always one front and center. You want to put your Rengar there, and he jumps around a lot, so you don't really care too much if he gets targeted right away. But it's really just a Rengar and Jinx reroll build. You go for both of them 3-star. If you get Executioner emblem, it's absolutely bonkers on Jinx. It's like such a good item, and you could even put it on Brand as well if you do not get a Jinx 3-star. But this comp is really good if you're able to get Rengar 3. It's going to be contested a bit because there's at least one Street Demon player every single game, so you do have to be a little bit careful on that. But if you have an early Rengar and one item to slam for him, or like a Shaco to hold his items, it definitely is a viable comp to play. It's just a little bit worse because Rengar got nerfed, but 7 Street Demon got buffed, so it kind of evens itself out. It's also a bit of an expensive comp to play because you're going for 2 3-cost 3-stars, and you're also going for like some 4-costs such as Brand and Nico and Vex. So you either need to get a really good start for this or like a really high econ start for this in order to play it. So if you're not able to stabilize with like an early Rengar, it might be kind of hard to pivot into. So I would only recommend playing this if you start the game with a bunch of Executioners and have items for them. That way when you stabilize in stage 3, because you should be doing like a 3-cost reroll pattern, and sometimes that involves leveling up to level 6 on stage 3 too, rolling for a 2-star carry, and then using that to last you until you get the 3-star Rengar. It's going to be a long time unless you get insanely lucky. So it is a little tricky to play. I think 3-cost reroll is the hardest type of reroll to play. The easiest, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 costs. It kind of depends on the meta, but for 3 costs, you have to make a lot more decisions. So be careful when you play this. Next build up we have is Shaco Reroll. So Shaco is going to be only viable if you start the game with a 2-star Shaco and an Infinity Edge, or maybe some crazy artifact item that helps him execute a lot of people, such as Collector, or something that gives him a bunch of damage. And essentially when you play him, you just want to stack up as many Slayers as you can. And he ends up just killing a lot of people because he stacks up a lot of kills in the early game. That's why you need the Infinity Edge early. If you don't have that, he's not going to stack up and your Shaco is going to be really, really weak. So when you play this comp, make sure you have Infinity Edge on Shaco on stage 2-1 so that he could start killing people. Really simple comp to play though, because it's 1-cost reroll. Like, I don't know if I've explained 1-cost reroll in this video yet, but essentially you do not level or roll early on stage 3-1. When you're level 4, roll down to 32 gold and pick up your units. If you have 7 or more copies, roll further for Shaco 3. If not, econ back up and slow roll at level 5 until you hit Shaco 3, or until stage 4-1, where you will roll until you hit the unit 3-star. The reason why you do this on stage 4 is because that's when your comp needs to spike, because that's when people get like 1-star 4-cost units, or they get like a 2-star 3-cost unit, and a 2-star 1-cost unit is not going to be able to compete against that, so you need them 3-star. That's why you roll at that stage. And then you win most of the rounds in stage 4, scale a little bit into stage 5 because you got a bunch of stacks. And then once people get their main comps online, that's when you start losing. So then hopefully while you're losing in stage 5, you get to econ up, hit some higher levels, maybe add in some legendaries if you have room for it, and then win in the super late game if you get there. So that's kind of how this comp works. You could either bleed out, get a top 4, or reach level 9 and get a bunch of legendaries. It just depends on how your specific game kind of plays out. Next build up we have is going to be Veigar Reroll. Veigar, I only play this if I have a blue buff and if I get a ton of Veigars, because there's so many good blue buff comps out there right now. I could go either Annie or the Vex comp. So if I have a blue buff early, why would I play Veigar? You know, like, he is a bit weaker than he was last patch, but he definitely is still playable. But there's so many other comps that are really good that use the same exact item. So why would I go for Veigar when I could go for the other ones instead? But if the game decides to give me 4 Veigars at the start of the game or something like that, or like 4 Veigars by the time I hit level 6, like, how am I supposed to say no to that? You know, you go Veigar Reroll and then you play around it, go for 4 Cyber Boss. You need to get Kabuko to reach that point. If you ever get new high score, they did nerf that augment a little bit, but because I think it guarantees getting a Kabuko, I'm not sure, but every time I've taken it, I've always gotten a Kabuko, and it pretty much guarantees your 4 Cyber Boss power spike, which is exactly what he needs, and then he goes ham with it. And then late game, you get a Viego in, he's gonna secure that for you. For tanks, it could be either 3-star Poppy, 3-star Shyvana, 3-star Mordekaiser, or it could be Kabuko. Doesn't really matter who. And then in the late game, you could either add in more techies or more legendaries. Pretty simple 2-cost reroll though. Only play this if you get a lot of Veigars, because if you have the blue buff from the early game, you might as well go for Vex, or you might as well go for Strategist Amp. Next comp up we have is going to be the B tier. So Golden Ox, like, again, it's not that Golden Ox is bad, it's just not great unless you get a very specific game for it. But if you do, it's kind of like a jackpot comp. You could go for it, farm up a lot of gold in the early game by getting kills with your Golden Ox. Not too much to think about there. If you also get like wise spending is incredibly good with this, because you just get a really easy way to stack up your Golden Ox trait. So definitely look out for that. Exotech, yeah, it's kind of in the dumpster right now. Let me show you the stats on Zeri. It's not like super bad, but it's definitely not good. It's seen much better days. So if we look at the 4-cost units, we look at their play rate, let's say. Okay, so Zeri is pretty far down at the bottom, but she's also a 4.61, which is pretty bad. Like, if you compare it to Aphelios, which I said was a good comp, he's also a 4.61, but twice as many people are playing Aphelios as they are Zeri. So that's why it's a little harder to get a better average placement on Aphelios, because you're more contested. Zeri's uncontested and she still sucks. So let's just put it that way, right? Not good to play. I wouldn't do this unless you get some crazy Exotech stuff. But even then, like, all their augments got nerfed in the recent patch. So even if you get like the Exotech Golem or like some of the other Exotech augments, like, I don't even know if those are good enough to kind of play this. Like, I'd only play this if I got everything for free. But since Zeri uses the same items as the Vanguard Marksman comp, like, I don't see a reason to play this over that. Next comp up we have is going to be Vayne Reroll. It just got nerfed too hard, so yeah, probably skip out on playing this for now. LeBlanc Strategist Reroll, I added this comp recently. You only play it if you get a Mana Zane, or if you get like 3-star LeBlanc for free and you have a blue buff already. But again, you know what I'm going to say with the blue buff. If you have a blue buff, there are much better comps to go for. But I guess if you are at a last resort, or if you play Cypher at the start and you get a ton of LeBlancs, you could go for this. Definitely viable there. And then the other comps, Misfortune, Anima Squad, Divinicorp, Nitrogen, Seraphine, Techie Rerolls. Like, yeah, you don't really need to play the other stuff. I don't think any of the comps on the website right now are like super, like, for sure unplayable. Like, there are times to play Nitro. For example, if you get Starry Night, you could still play Nitro. If you get the hack or the portal where it's like 2-star units can show up in your shop, Nitro is going to be good still. But overall, it's not going to like be a comp you see every game. But B tier comps are for those comps where if you hit the right situation, you can still play them and not feel bad about it. That's kind of why I leave it there. And C tier is more so like, never play this. That's kind of what I reserve C tier for. But just to sum up, right now, like, it's mainly AP. I'm going to be going for like Steet Demons or Vex in most of my games, like Strategist Flex if I have to fall back on it, or if like Vex is super contested. And then if I have attack damage items, I'm going to settle for Vanguard, Marksman, Aphelios. Not going to be too happy about it, but it is what it is. if you get some sort of insane bruiser start, such as Bruiser Emblem, or like the artifact items that we talked about, Blighting Jewel, and what's the other one, Sniper's Focus or Fiddlesticks, then you could go for this. It's like a S+ tier if you get that. And that's going to be how I'm going to be navigating most of this patch, like mainly playing around 4 costs, playing around AP, and having a blast, you know? Ziggs isn't even the main carry of like the Strategist comp, but but one of his voice line is like, this will be a blast, right? But that's gonna be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments, drop them in the Discord, wherever. I pretty much check those as much as I can. And of course, if you want more info on everything I talked about, it's gonna be on the website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And if you wanna check out some TFT data, head on over to teamfight.lol. That's gonna be it for me today. Hope to see you all next time.